Hi, my name's Phil. I'd like to talk about politics. So, at PMQs today, Kemi Badenoch decided to ask a series of vaguely sensible questions, which is unusual for her. Someone should probably check if she's feeling all right. And by far the most cutting was of Labour's manifesto commitment to not raise the rates of income tax, VAT and national insurance for ordinary working people. Starmer refused to commit to the manifesto promise despite being asked several times. So it's fair to say the government are at least thinking about bending the crap out of the promise. So is there any way to do that and still deny that the promise has been broken, and at what cost? But first, for daily news and politics, please click the subscribe button to stay notified. So yeah, PMQs. I actually can't criticise Kemi Badenoch's questions. They were perfectly sensible questions for a Conservative leader. Starmer fired back with all of them because at the end of the day, when it comes to the economy, which is the thing the Conservatives should focus on, yes, their record is absolutely dreadful. Dreadful. There's no defending it. But at the same time, you've got to keep asking the questions anyway. So anyway, when Rachel Reeves increased employers' national insurance last year, some people crowd foul, pointed to the manifesto. Oh, you said you wouldn't increase it. Labour pointed out that the manifesto promises on the three big taxes included a line about working people, which they defined in interviews as low to middle income earning workers, right? And the Tories had no right to complain because they spotted the tricksiness in the manifesto wording as soon as it was published. They spent the entire general election campaign from that point pointing out that Labour were going to increase employers' contributions. They were right. Always read election promises very carefully and very literally. However, Labour did categorically promise not to raise the rates of the three current bands of income tax. Now, I've said before, they could technically add a new band, but not raise the rates of the current ones. And yet there's a belief that the Treasury are seriously looking at raising income tax. This would be a breach of the manifesto. So is there a way to do it with minimal backlash? I actually suspect not, but let's go through one idea I saw that seemed to be leaked from the Treasury. So it would work like this. The government would raise the base rate of income tax by 1%. So literally everyone who pays income tax will pay more income tax. That would be a tax rise on those ordinary working people as well. There's no getting away from that. But the Treasury would then cut employees' national insurance by enough to offset the income tax rise. This would allow the Treasury to massage the rates such that those low to middle income workers would not actually pay more tax overall, and some actually could pay less in theory. Now, if your focus was solely on those lower income workers, and they are absolutely key for Labour, it would still be a breach of the manifesto. But maybe one people wouldn't care about, because as long as their taxes aren't increasing, why would they care about the details? Like, most of the public are less interested in the bureaucracy, more the practical impact on their lives. So if you tell them they've got to pay an extra £10 for that, but they'll get given an extra £10 from somewhere else, it's like, well, I've got the same money, I don't care, right? However, and I'm sure many of you will have spotted the obvious risk here, pensioners pay income tax, but not national insurance. So a worker earning £25,000 a year might not pay more in taxes, could even be less. But a pensioner on the same £25,000 a year will definitely pay more. In fact, if it's £25,000 a year, they will pay about £124 extra a year. Now, that doesn't sound a lot. It's like a tenner a month. But at the lower end of earnings, if you still got rent to pay as a pension, if you don't even have your own home, it's noticeable potentially. A tenner a month could be noticeable. And also look at the impact it had when Labour took the £200 winter fuel allowance from many pensioners last year. Now, technically, those pensioners were not out of pocket because their bills were an average of £200 cheaper last winter than the winter before. But that didn't matter. You take money from the most committed voting bloc in the country. It has consequences. And Labour took those consequences with both barrels in the face. They eventually realised their heinous mistake and almost completely U-turned on the policy earlier this year. Would it really be wise to risk doing what sounds like exactly the same thing again? Remember, the winter fuel policy wasn't broadly unpopular with the public. Most working age people approved of it in the polls. But pissing off elderly voters is something that politicians the world over are supposed to understand is a suboptimal strategy. It's why we can't get rid of national insurance altogether. Economists on both the left and the right agree. They agree on very little when it comes to tax policy. One area where they do agree, another area actually is land tax. We should have land tax. But another area where left and right economists agree is that national insurance is a bad tax. It's regressive. You pay a higher rate when you're earning low to middle incomes. It loads up an excessive tax burden on not just workers, but those on those low to middle incomes that are important to Labour. So on the one hand, Labour would love to shift more of the tax burden onto income tax and away from employees' national insurance, because it would actually force higher earners to pay more. Remember, everyone pays income tax. Not everyone pays national insurance. Also, some who do pay stump up for less. You know, I get charged a lower rate of national insurance than a worker earning exactly the same. I remember David Cameron toying with the idea of streamlining it to like make them the same. But the backlash from small business owners put paid to that idea. But if Labour could get away with increasing income tax and reducing employees' national insurance to compensate, I mean, that would be a good tax move for workers, and especially workers on average incomes. It would mean some others, like business owners and so on, would pay more. You know, there are some people who can get their money from passive income. In some cases, it would be capital gains, and unless they put up that as well, okay. But if it has to be paid in income tax, they would pay more. So richer people would pay more tax, basically, and lower income workers would not. So it works quite well on a lot of levels. It's got that pensioner fly in the ointment, which is why such an obvious Labour-friendly tax policy was never planned in the manifesto to begin with. But I really don't see why pensioners would take such a move any more stoically than they did the severe means testing of the winter fuel allowance last year. Yet I see no way to even try. Labour cannot increase employers' national insurance again. As long as businesses don't feel unduly hit by this new budget, the outlook for hiring looks actually quite decent next year. Putting up VAT would hit those lower income households more. That is another regressive tax. There's a reason why VAT is only ever increased by Tory governments, not Labour ones. Putting up employees' national insurance would disproportionately shift more tax again to those low to middle income workers. The people are supposed to be protected by Reeve's tax policies. You know, it could have been justified if Labour had said last year before the election, we are going to reverse those pre-election bribes that Sunak put in place. But I think it's too late to do that now, which only really leaves income tax. And if Labour were thinking of just adding an upper tier band that would only hit the rich, that wouldn't be breaking the manifesto promise. And Starmer would have committed to the promises today, and he didn't. This doesn't automatically mean income tax is definitely going up, but it does mean it probably is. Doing so will definitely upset any pensioner whose income is high enough to pay it. It's possible they can win over much of the public with a reduction in national insurance to compensate and put the emphasis on, you know, wealthier income taxpayers who will be paying more. But those retired voters, some of them are on fairly low incomes. I'm not convinced such a strategy would be wise, especially after last year. Unless, I suppose, there's some way to exempt pension payments from the tax rise, but that would sound very messy to me. But let me know what you think in the comments below. For more content, you could subscribe to the channel or even join for access to streams and behind the scenes updates. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.